Strider, the free world relies on your success. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
I'm Mock Rider.
And I'm Sam.
That's not
Whoa.
true. You are not Mock Rider.
I am
Everybody's
Mock Rider.
Mock Rider.
I thought I was Mock Rider, and I thought it'd be nice to have a little callback this episode.
Well, it's the 200th episode. Very exciting. Lots to celebrate. And I'm sure, like, for all of our listeners, it's also quite a celebration for everybody who's been listening for 200 straight episodes. We can go around the table real quick and just talk about our thoughts on that. Sean, let's start with you. 200 episodes. Is it a big deal?
It's pretty much 4 years. That's a lot. I didn't really expect this to go on for 4 years, if I'm being honest. But I think, that's a big deal. It's a lot.
Joe, did you think we'd make it?
I thought we'd make it, but I was never sure. I was never sure. When we started, I was like, maybe we'll lose interest. But no, I think our interest, if anything, has just ramped up as we go. So, I'm excited to have gotten this far and to keep going.
Sam, did you ever
done.
think you'd come back?
Of course. I knew I'd be back. Yeah. I've mentioned this to someone on Twitter, but I've just been kind of focusing on music, which kind of sounds like pretentious. Like I'm really just focusing on my music right now. But it's not. I'm in a band. We practice a lot. It's it takes up a lot of time because you have to practice before the practice too, which is a lot of time.
Homework practice.
Yeah, it's homework practice and regular practice. So I don't know. I will be back. I can't say in what capacity, but this is something that is dear to me, and I want to continue to be a part of it in however I can.
Sometimes I do a homework practice for just speaking about things. It doesn't really pay off that well because I still fumble over words a lot. But when I'm not recording the show, I'm usually trying to exclaim opinions on things.
And of course, this being the 200th episode means that it has been a little more than 3 years of nonstop recording of Nostalgia episodes. We started with 10-Yard Fight back. The published date was February 9th, 2018, but we recorded actually in early January. It was one of my New Year's resolutions for 2018 to start a podcast, and all four of us made an appearance on that. We did 10-Yard Fight, Baseball, Clue Land, and Duck Hunt, all in the same record. Guys, actually, what were we smoking back then?
Wait a minute. No, we did out of order. We did Excite Bike, and then we went back and did Duck Hunt. For some reason, because we didn't have the zappers yet.
Yo, that is great trivia. You're the master of the trivia over here.
Wait, we did Excite Bike first?
Yeah,
it was some real demo tape shit. We had one mic talking into it from across a room. Sounds terrible. Go back and listen.
Yeah, you can definitely tell.
It's so bad that I actually put a disclaimer in front of those episodes. I think those first 4 episodes, probably Excite Bike instead of Duck Hunt, saying hey, you should just know that a lot of people think that this is an okay podcast, and this is not okay, but you should listen to these episodes, but also listen to the newer episodes because they're a little higher fidelity. Of course, I just want to take one moment to thank our audio producer, Chris, who has been with us on the whole ride, too. He doesn't speak, but you might know him as an occasional voice actor on the show. He plays a couple different roles. I won't say what they were because that would spoil the magic, but we've had some fun moments with Chris as well, and we couldn't do this without him on the show, so I just wanted to give him a quick shout out as well, even though he insists still on not speaking.
Come on, Chris.
He has a mic. He could speak right now if he wanted, but
we do have a very special announcement, though, for us and for fans of Nostalgia. We've been paying close attention for the last probably 3 years, since the beginning of the podcast, really. We've been asking the listeners, what do you guys think of the show? What matters most to you guys? what was surprising is that the most requested feature out of anything for Nostalgia was something that was kind of always there in the beginning and was one of the main like concepts of the show. But then when we lost, like the ability to just continue to fund it, like we were losing money on it, we shut it down. And that was the website. The website is something where people constantly tweeted us being like, hey, what happened to this? Or why isn't this working? And we were trying to explain to them, like, it's just something that's just not profitable for us to run. But we know that's what a lot of you have been asking for is, what when can the website come back? And how can I give money so that the website could come back? And, we were really appreciative. In general, just the sentiment, too, that, like, the website was something that you guys wanted to see. But we couldn't just ask for money for a website. That's not who we are. That's not what we set out to make the show was. The show has never been profitable. It's an expensive show to run, but we love doing it week in and week out. And that's why, we're looking at, well, how can we have the website? How can we make something new for listeners? And how can we make sure that this show, Nostalgia, the show that you've been listening to for 200 plus episodes, continues to be the same exact thing without compromise.
So we're bringing on advertisements.
And that's not true. We've actually done some advertisements, but they're gone. Yeah, they're gone. If you go back to older episodes, they're not there. But new episodes sometimes have sponsored, but then like those are also designed to be removed. It's pretty smart, trust me. It's like one of those things where we always record the episode without the ads. This way they can be removed later. So what we decided on doing is, nothing about Nostalgia, this show, the show that you subscribe to every Friday. Nothing about that is changing at all. You will still be able to get this episode and episode 201, 202, 203 every Friday without compromise, guaranteed to you. The new thing that we are offering on a special thing that we have in the show notes, a link to our Patreon page, is for just $1 a month. That's all we're really asking for is $1 a month. You are helping fund, the what we need to have this website up and running. We do it through Squarespace, so it's not too much per year or anything like that, but just the costs of us maintaining the website and using Squarespace and all that. We're going to make a special thank you page to everybody, and you can, let us know, obviously, what you want to be titled as in those things. You don't have to use your real name. But this way, everybody knows who's helping get this website back up and running because, whether you're someone who's going to contribute or not to this Patreon, that is something that a lot of people are asking for, and so we think we should give everybody the chance to make this a feature. That said, we're not going to wait for people to hit a certain amount of subscribers before we launch up the website. We're comfortable taking that cost on, and the website will come back, and we're happy to say that all the information that you need from Nostalgia and to catch up will be there very soon.
Web 3.0, baby.
Yeah, I can't promise it'll be up when this episode's up, but it will be up very soon. In addition to that, though, for people who are big fans of Nostalgia and want more of the podcast, more than what we offer here as a chronological exploration, we are offering for $5 a month access to a new show called Nostalgia Bites. That's BYTES. Get it? These are bite-sized episodes delivered once a month.
Like it's bite-sized. So like a bite out of food.
Right. A bite out of food, but it's a computer bite.
Yeah.
BYTE, yeah. These shorter episodes are once a month. They are exclusive looks for these $5 a month Patreon subscribers who basically it's going to take a look at the Famicom library, and we're going to look at the games that you can play without any Japanese language requirements. You don't need to know any Japanese. You can, as long as you have access to these Famicom games, you can play them just like we're going to play them, and we're going to look at them. Again, it's only once a month, so it's not every Friday or anything like that. But we're hoping to not just look at all of the Famicom games and say like, oh, this is another one, and it's the same thing that we played kind of as this other episode, but it's this. No, this is going to be looking at some of the best and unique Famicom games, and I hope the hope is that everybody will also play along and experience these for the first time, because the hook of nostalgia really is you guys have all played these games or are familiar with these games, and you're hearing a younger generation's take on what these games, are like today with the modern lens. But with Nostalgia Bites, I'd argue that there's probably not too many of you guys that have dived in to the Famicom catalog, and that's what we're really hoping to have access to here with Nostalgia Bites, is we can all experience something new together for the very first time. Again, it's just $5 a month to get access to that. You'll get a special RSS feed, and you'll still get, obviously, the thank you on the Nostalgia website and all that. There's definitely going to be more bonuses along the way for everyone, though. We're looking into other ideas. I don't want to promise anything, but we're always thinking about other types of shows we can do or other types of bonus content we can give you guys. So while we don't want to promise that directly, Nostalgia Bites is something we can promise, and we're really looking forward to that. That first episode, which, for more information, definitely check out our Twitter, but we'll also be talking about it here on the podcast as well. Guys, anything you want to say about this new Nostalgia Bites? Any excitement, anything you want to tease or anything like that?
I am excited. I really look forward to us having a home on the worldwide internet superhighway again. And I can't wait to get into the Famicom stuff and brainstorming about what else we can throw onto that old Patreon-y.
Yeah, it's exciting to try these like new games now, like through it from like a different perspective. We're getting these games that that might be totally different than anything we've played, and little extra bonuses. And yeah, likewise, whatever we can come up with down the road too. Some other things that we can do, other types of episodes. It's really fun to be able to branch out.
I'm just excited for the website so I can finally figure out, is NES Baseball haunted?
Which is our most requested article, because I think strictly because we reference it so much on the show. But yes, soon everybody will know if NES Baseball is or is not haunted. We don't take a firm stance on it. It's up for, all true believers to understand and to make their own final assumptions for. I just, one thing, if you don't mind me sounding like a broken record here, I just want everyone to know that we, sincerely appreciate how much the show has grown. And that's why we made the decision of whether you're a $1 a month subscriber, a $5 a month subscriber for the bonus podcast, or you don't subscribe at all. We're not removing anybody's access to Nostalgia, this podcast. It's very important to us that everybody who's been on the ride stays on the ride. We couldn't have made it to 200 episodes without the growth we've been seeing. So even if you can't, pledge any money to whether the funding of the website or the new podcast, we want you guys to know that the best way you can support us is just through word of mouth, telling your friends, hey, I've been listening to this show for, X amount of months or years. I've been listening to this show, and I think you should too. That is the number one thing that this podcast needs, is just growth. And we've been, diving into our own pockets a lot throughout the show's run to, do advertising or to run, stuff on Reddit or do the game jam. All those things are, with our own time and effort and money and stuff like that. So we really appreciate just everybody who comes in and listens every week, because it is a consistent growth. We've only ever seen the numbers go up, and we really appreciate everybody who's
and if listening. I could just jump in real quick, I will say that one of my favorite things to do now is to sell out. So this is really playing into my strengths.
I can confirm that, yeah. Sean sells out a lot.
Anyway, we do have an episode to talk about. This is not just some kind of celebration thing. We won't be reviewing the Essential Games list. We won't magically put Zelda 2 on the list today.
Never gonna happen.
We have a real schedule of things to do, and that is mostly to talk about Strider, the Capcom. I think, to some people, this is a classic, but I found that to be a little confusing in terms of information, because they developed an arcade game and this NES game at the same time. So I'm not sure which one was actually the revered one. Feels like my research led me to believe that the arcade one is the one that's more, famous in terms of, longevity. but this NES game was well received at the time, and it's kind of like an early mix of, you know, the games that we've been getting, like Ninja Gaiden meets a Metroid style game. Would you agree with that assessment, guys?
Yeah. I've heard someone compare it to Bionic Commando also.
Oh, that's a good comparison, yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's like a lot of these games. I mean, even back to like, so there's some elements of like Metal Gear in here, as like you're finding clues, and you got your home base that you communicate with and stuff. I think it's like, it feels like it's on that same path as games like that we've had intermittently.
Yeah, like a strong, it leans on some sort of story that actually comes out through the gameplay a bit more than your standard NES game. It's got some cinematic elements, so I can see that like Metal Gear comparison there.
So in this game, you play as, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think it's Hiryu, or Hiryu for all I know. But you take control of the main character, who is he's the youngest ever in the elite class known as Strider. They're like a secret organization that probably is responsible for a lot of the the Illuminati stuff of the world. And in this side-scrolling platform game, you play as him and have to locate clues, which are kind of like floppy disks, and interrogate members of either rival factions or of your own faction. And these clues are required in order to continue progression in the story and unlock other levels, but also move further along in previous levels too. There's some degree of backtracking, moving forward, moving the story along, and power-up system that requires you to kind of like go back and try your new power-ups in places that were already familiar to you. Not much unlike how it was in Metroid, where you would acquire, say, missiles, and now you can open up doors specifically with missiles and stuff like that. I feel like, on paper, it's a pretty solid idea. Not that it's anything too original, right? We've seen this all before. But the one that stood out to me is the idea that you have to collect clues, almost like a detective, get the next beat in the story in order to then go back to your main hub, analyze the files, and get an idea of where you need to either go back to or where you need to go next. Sean, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really liked that element of it. The files aren't... there's a lot of games that do something like this, where there are the things that are revealed to you in the game are how you have to progress. So I guess like it's sort of been done in like Castlevania 2 and semi-adventure games like that, where you have to learn this information from some NPC. But at least in this one, it's a lot more clear, and that there's a whole system for it. Like you go back to your base and you use your computer to analyze, and it's not super on the nose, but it gives you an idea of where you have to go. I really like that. It's sort of like you're piecing it together, and I just like the idea of a home base in general to sort of tie the game together. So yeah, I was a big fan of that.
Yeah, and it makes that home base like sort of the catalyst to I guess what would be sort of like Metroidvania-y, where you have to go back to the home base and then like go somewhere you've already been, but now with the new
it's like a
tools
central
you have.
room.
Yeah. But I was going to ask you guys, would you, because I feel like this game has like elements that it acts like it's got these RPG elements, but I can't decide if I would call it more of an RPG or more of like Metroidvania. Because
I'd say it's more an adventure game.
Well, right. But I mean, in those elements that you're like, in the elements that give you that progression, that like, I can't get past this wall until I get this item.
I think the difference here is that like an RPG would be system based in terms of how you progress, whereas in this, like, there are specific moments where you level up. It's like when you talk to a specific character, and I don't think there's any sequence breaking. Like we will always level up when you talk to these characters.
Right. And that's what I thought too, for the most part, but I just thought it was interesting that they we sort of talked about this recently in the boat game, which we just played, and I can't remember the name of it. Cobra Triangle.
The
but we sort of talked about this recently, the idea that like it's giving you like this. It's almost by calling them level ups and letting your health and your power move up every time. I almost felt like it was giving me the illusion of like, oh, it's an RPG and I'm growing, but really it's just I've passed this part of the game, so I've unlocked the ability to do this. Like, it's very linear in that sense. Not that that's a bad thing. I just thought it was interesting that I don't think we've ever seen that kind of thing presented as like levels.
Yeah,
because levels usually associate with like my own skill, rather than just like how far I got in the game.
Yeah, I agree. It is kind of misleading, but I guess it's not really hurting anything.
No, not at all. I just thought it was interesting, yeah.
Joe, if I could pose the question to you, would you have preferred, we've seen in games like Rambo, I don't know why that comes to my head, but, where killing enemies gains you XP, even in an action-adventure style game, we've seen that version of that. Did you prefer something like that? Would you have preferred that, like, as in Strider, like, for enemies you kill, you then level up experience to gain, like, more points in your health bar or learn new tricks? Or was it better to say, like, no, you have to complete this kind, like the next step in the mission based on the files you analyzed, and then you get this, like, fake level up?
So based on the way that this game is designed, I think that the way it is the correct choice for them.
I agree.
Because it locks you behind these things and lets you kind of like experience this adventure in like the optimal order that they want you to, where you're learning things as you need to and stuff. So I wasn't trying to argue that it should be that way, but I think like, if we wanted to like entertain that thought for a second, I think that there's room for it to be like the items you get from the enemies and the levels as far as your health and your HP and your, what do you call it, the mana or whatever, your energy bar, that levels up based on your experience, and the other stuff that you need to progress levels up based on where you are in the game. I think there's room for that. I don't think it's necessary, but
yeah, I think this would have to be
explored.
Some kind of immersive sim for it to actually work like a system-based level up system. I think that with how, since you don't really have that much latitude in how you complete this game, the way they have it now is fine.
But, Joe, you did remind me, and it is a different style game, so Sean, your point's not wrong here. You reminded me of Rygar, which, has a, kill a lot of enemies to get stronger and, gain more HP, but you don't necessarily, like, gain new, like, breaking items or, like, that would destroy the level-based design that they had set up for you. That could have been interesting for Strider if it was, if that's just how your energy and health were earned, was through like, experience points, but then the items you acquire are level based.
Yeah. It feels almost like it's like, okay, that sounds like more just like this Christmas list wish of like, oh, that'd be cool to have, but like in no way is it a complaint about what we do have here.
Yeah, they'd have to rework a lot of stuff because this game also has that fun NES thing where enemies just spawn and spawn and spawn, so
yes,
you could just stand in front of an enemy conveyor belt and just keep like spamming attack, and then you're max level.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that.
Is the collecting of the floppy disks a unique idea, or is that just the same as, we've seen in other games, collect X number of things and you'll be able to move on from that particular level? I'm kind of drawing some blanks here, but, even
I'd say
early... go ahead, John.
Well, it may not be a unique idea. The context of it is at least unique, where it's I guess it's based in reality enough that I kind of buy it as like, oh, I need to find this so I can figure out where to go next, instead of the game just only literally letting me go to where I need to go. And it's a little bit less contrived than a collect X amount of X amount of Y, because in the fiction of the game, like finding information via floppy disks makes sense. So I at least liked the context of it, if not the mechanic itself.
And I also like the idea of like you're looking through the levels for these things, and it's not that like you're getting to the end, like the way that the game is constructed, where you have to like return to levels and go back and search. It makes sense that you're like searching for like Sean was saying, it makes sense in like the scope of the story, and also in terms of like how the levels are. Like if you were just getting to the end of each level, if it was like a linear thing, and then at the end of each level there's like data for you, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is the information I need to get to the next level, and then it just sends you to the next one. Like that wouldn't be as engaging, I don't think. But I think that the way that the levels are constructed makes sense with this narrative as well.
Yeah, and that fact that you're searching, also coupled with the fact that the things that you find don't always, I mean, sometimes they do, but they don't always just unlock a new place. Like, sometimes they just give you like actual real-life information that you have to apply, you know, out here in your own brain before you can figure out where to go. It's not like it just says, you got this, your character knows what's going on, so now the new place is unlocked. It's like, you got this, I'm like, oh, maybe I gotta go, you know, go back to Australia where I already was, or a bad example because that's the last place you go, but, you know, like somewhere that you've already been, and it like reminds you of something or tells you, it gives you real context, which makes it feel like a little more like you're in charge rather than the game is just guiding you.
Yeah, and so like setup-wise, it's great, right? The idea of collecting these floppy disks and then going to your home base, analyzing the information, receiving the intel, and being like, okay, now either, you know, like a new place like Egypt might have opened up, or I actually have to go back to a previous level and, you know, with my new power-ups, try an area that I saw before that I wasn't quite sure what was going on there, but maybe now my new power-ups, or as they're referred to in this game, tricks, will do something for me. But before we get to, like, you know, exploration and all that, it's worth mentioning that the actual execution, presentationally, of these things isn't as great as we're making it sound. And I'm not saying it's terrible, but it does have its flaws. Number one, just being the presentation of the floppy disks. I found that to be very strange how they're not, like, immediately present in the room. Sometimes they'll just drop down from the sky, or, like, people will... You know, even with your power-up boots and stuff like that, like, they're not there, but then when you slide into the area or, you know, walk enough into the area, the boots just happen to spawn from thin air. I don't know if they were trying to, like, present it as, like, oh, you know, if you saw them, then you would know to go there. We have to encourage exploration. But I didn't like how they just spawn out of thin air in those places, especially with the characters that give you information. You know, if you run into, like, some of the scientists or stuff like that, they trigger like a cutscene of just text, but then after that, then still a floppy disk or a power-up will just randomly spawn. Then you've collected that power-up, or say it's the floppy disk. Now you are stuck with the only possible way to go back to your ship is backtracking through something that you've already done, which is only tedious, right? You haven't acquired a new power-up that now makes going backwards easier or anything like that. You just have your floppy disk. You need to find out what the information is on it, and you have to do the whole level again backwards. And when I say whole level, it's not too long of an experience, probably like 5 minutes or so, but you have to do everything you just did once more in the opposite direction, and it doesn't encourage, like, taking a different path or a different series of tubes. I think actually sometimes it does.
Yeah,
say like, you know,
it's very it's really inconsistent because there are some instances where it will let you walk out the most recent door that you walked in, and then you're just back at your base. And then there are the ones that you go into that series of tubes, and it conveniently lets you out very near the beginning where you can get back to base. But then, yeah, there are several instances where you have to backtrack the entire map. And like, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason as to which, like, key items trigger one or the other. So it's odd. And I also agree it's tedious at best when it ends up being like that.
Even the explanation of, like, getting back to your ship, though, like going to the very edge of the level where you started and just jumping, and this time you magically just, like, jump all the way. I'm assuming it's a teleport, but, like, it just looks like you're jumping into the sky and going back to home base. It's just a strange thing. And I'm not saying that they should just make it like a start menu thing where, like, you just press the select button, which is your menu screen, and then just saying, like, return to base. Like, maybe that was the right answer, but I'm sure they could have just done it better.
It's a power-up for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my biggest point was just that, you know, in Metroid, a game that I gave a lot of criticism to for its backtracking and its confusing overall map, everything looking kind of the same. In this game, the backtracking doesn't mean anything new for the player. You're just doing what you've done, or you're just wasting time to go back to the base. It's literally just can you survive with your health in time to get back to the base? I'm not saying that's the worst design thing I've ever seen. It just, with the story progression and everything, it only just adds another layer of filler. Right? Joe, any thoughts?
Well, I want to play devil's advocate on a couple of these points. I totally see what you guys are saying. But I was almost going to present this positive of like a appreciation of the game design that they put into it. Because I thought most of the levels where you have to backtrack, they designed them in a way where, like, you know, maybe you're going, when you get there, you go to the right and you go into a cave and you go up and you come back around to the left. But they design it in a way where, like, maybe after you talk to the person you need and you get the item you're looking for, you drop down close to where you started, or near a tube that will take you all the way back to the beginning, or some way where they've almost designed some of them not necessarily as like circles, but as ways where they put you near tools that'll get you back there easier. And I thought that because they did it that way, they got a little bit of the best of both worlds. They got immersion, but they didn't make you go back through the whole level every time. I'm not saying there was never a time. I'm trying to think. There might have been one time or one or two times where, like, you do have to go back like a tedious amount. But that didn't bother me so much. I thought that the level design sort of was a solve for that almost, especially
Sometimes,
with these
though.
tubes.
Like it just seemed kind of like scattered how it was applied.
Yeah, and I definitely, hadn't even thought of it until you said this, but, like, yeah, there's definitely some weird times where just like, oh, you got your objective, all right, just you're back at your base now. And then other times you have to walk all the way back, which I thought is, like, weird. Like, it's a little inconsistent, and, like, there was not like a like mind, and, like, maybe one person designed one level and one person designed the other. So I feel that part. But also to address what you said at the beginning, Mike, about the floppy disks or the items that you're looking for just spawning. I also thought that was kind of a means for them to make you talk to the person who's standing there. Like, they would get you to talk to them and, like, make sure you don't grab it just felt like almost like a technical reason where it's like, you get here, something's going to happen, you talk to this person, then the floppy disk will appear because you've got the information. He said, here, take this disk, or here's my information, or here's what I know. And like, yes, it's a little weird that it just pops out of thin air after you walk away a few seconds later, which I did think that was weird, and I was thinking at first that would be really annoying if I missed that because I left too soon. But I don't know if you noticed, it actually does not ever let you leave until you pick up that flaw. Once you're on the disc with an important item, it won't let you leave that screen until you pick up the disc. So, like, you can't. So in the end, I feel like it was sort of weird that it was there, but it didn't hurt anything because functionally it was the same as it being there the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, those are all good points, and I don't want to harp on this too much, but just to make the Metroid comparison again, it's just that in Metroid, the only reason you ever backtrack is either you're lost, which is a negative reason for backtracking, but it's kind of on the player's responsibility to not get lost in this world, so that's kind of on you, or you've acquired a new power-up that now, like, has new implications for the entire world. So as you're backtracking, you either use your new power-up to your advantages or open up new paths, right, that you previously couldn't. So you're not really backtracking so much as opening up new doors. In the layout of these worlds, it is very segmented so that when you return to an old world, it wants you to think that, like, your new tricks or your new boots matter more than they really do. Like, you get the magnet boots and you go back to the first stage, and it just enables you to go into that one room where the bricks were glowing, and then it, like, you have that aha moment that the magnet boots will now let you access a new area, but that's it. And then you still have to backtrack from that after the fact. So it's not really opening up anything new. It's just, this was our way of making sure the player didn't get to this point in the level beforehand, and now they can. Whereas Metroid has, like, this whole, world around it where you can be in one particular place, and now the power-up that you receive has implications for every area you go to. This one still makes it more like I was in stage 1, now I'm in stage 2. Technically, I'm going back to stage 1, but it's really just stage 3. There's nothing new to really do from the previous part of stage 1. I just move forward in the level where I previously couldn't.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
and
I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, and I don't really like when supposed power-ups are really just keys. That's all the boots really are. But I still think that if this were this is preferable to just a standard like level 1, level 2, level 3, keep going right, or right, down, left. I think that having to apply some kind of critical thinking to how you're progressing is still like a thing that that this game benefits from. It's it's not a lot, but I think that adds a bit to the experience of the game.
And to add to that, I think that Mike's point is valid, but I also think that it's a different kind of game. The levels are set up differently. It's not one interconnected world. And so when you return to level 1, and you're like, oh, now I know exactly where I need to go, you can kind of breeze through it. And it's a different feeling than returning to a different area, or to a new area in Metroid with a power up to then explore the next area. It's kind of, it's different. It's different goals.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's almost like these areas are not, first of all, none of these levels are like long enough or quite frankly difficult enough that it like ever was really annoying for me to backtrack. And it does feel, while backtracking might get annoying sometimes too, but like it does feel a little bit like these are just like environments that you get familiar with. It's like, okay, like I know that place. Oh, I know how to get around here. It's just like, instead of feeling like levels, they feel like places, which I know is weird because it's still side scrolling, but it feels like it's like, I don't know, weird analogy. Bear with me for a second here, but like in Skyrim, you backtrack, but it's like, okay, but you're going back to a place you've already been, and you're doing something differently, or you're doing something different. I know this is not really to be compared to Skyrim in any way, and I know that also, that like what you're saying, Mike, is that there's not much different to do now because of the power-ups, and I get that. But I guess for the immersion sense of it, where it's like, oh, okay, I know this area, now I have what I need, I can go back and like, this is a place I'm familiar with. I do feel like I've been on missions here before.
Like, while the police station doesn't look like a police station, like it's still a very memorable game space. So that like I know that every level has these memorable areas, so that it doesn't feel like you're going from one box room to another.
And Joe, I will remind you that the point of this podcast is to compare these games to Skyrim.
That's
so
true.
That is very well done.
I'm allowed.
Yes. And just to connect Sam and Sean's thoughts there for a minute about like the level design, which I'm not completely against. Remember, I didn't say these were terrible things, just criticisms that I had. It is good that you are always, after analyzing a file, you are given the option to go anywhere, and that you can choose wrong. Like, you can go to a level that you maybe like misinterpreted, which I'm not quite sure, but the translation sucks at times, so it is possible that like you misinterpret what you're supposed to do next. Go to a older level thinking like, oh, now I have something new, and discover that you don't, right? And that's the same thing as getting lost in Metroid. So it can happen here, and that's again on the player. Like, the game is giving you the freedom to explore all these worlds. It's not saying stage 5, it's not saying like, okay, stage 5, you're back in Egypt, and now you've got, now you're in the pyramids, right? It doesn't do that for you. Instead, you have to make that decision. So I do like that, and I like that there's an ability for freedom and to be wrong. Since we're talking so much about exploration, just a couple things about these levels in particular. The size of these levels. Joe, you mentioned they weren't particularly long or difficult, but when you compare the size of these levels, the tube system, the frequency that you visit them, and also something that I'm not sure if these developers just like discovered this mechanic and we're like, oh, well, we have to put this in this game. Nobody's doing this. But for some reason, slopes are just all over this game. The people who made this game love slopes, and maybe it's because Super Mario couldn't figure it out until Super Mario World. But this whole game is designed with like, you know, oh, in the future, all cities will have slopes. And I don't know what that's about. But that's certainly a mechanic of these levels too, other than just the typical action platforming, because those slopes actually play off with momentum and they play off with how you traverse. So, you know, I know that's a lot to throw at you guys, but I just wanted to hear some highlights or some criticisms you have about any particular level in terms of the exploration in these levels. Sam, if you don't mind, can we start with you?
Sure. I mean, to be honest, I didn't play too far into this game. I only stayed around the first level, really. So my only criticisms, I guess, would be that there are like holes you can fall in, and then you have to like redo sections. But you know, then you learn not to fall in the holes. So again, I don't have the most expertise on this. Most of my research for this was like watching speed runs and watching other people play this.
Yeah, they're not fun. That basically the slope mechanic, I think, is really great on paper. It like the fact that you move faster downhill is very intuitive. But there's such it's such a discrete change. Like it goes from you move at this rate to you move at this other rate, and then when you're going up hills, I think it's a very extreme change in speed. Like you are so much slower, and it makes attacking anybody up or down a hill incredibly tedious. And then you've got the camera issues where it'll sort of follow you right at the edge, so you can't really see where you're going, making it even more dangerous than I think it should be, where I think it should be just like your character is centered more or less at all times. It's pretty. I appreciate that they tried to do something with this, like with the level geometry and like the topography of it, but it leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I'll say I think the slopes. I agree. I think that in general they're not. Yeah, it's like it's nice that they tried it. I don't think that they nailed it by any means, but I'll say that it was a little bittersweet for me at sometimes. Like I hated going up slopes and jumping and it always taking me a second to be like, wait, why aren't I jumping as high? Why aren't I going? Yeah. And like it always felt like kind of slow and tedious. I did sort of like the fact that if you want to get a higher jump, you can always run down slopes and use that to pick up speed, and then you can jump higher. And I feel like that was built in a lot where you had to do that, which sometimes I'd be like, wait, why aren't I jumping? And then when I did that, I remember thinking a lot like, oh, this works well, this mechanic of going that way. Like, I think that's the one thing about the slopes that work. Although, even with that, it doesn't really feel like you're speeding up, gaining momentum. It's just like you come to understand that that's what's happening. So even that's kind of flawed.
I think those are all solid points, and I don't have too much to add. Except for the tubes themselves, like, you know, I worry that they would have just instead made the whole game just slopes, right? Where you just like the only way to scale upwards is through these longer slopes, because they really took that to advantage so often. And I thought like it was cute in the Egypt level to represent a pyramid, but it's kind of bizarre how frequently these slopes show up. So I'm not sure what the solution was, but the tubes seem to act as both a gateway so that you can't like freely progress through areas. You know, you can only go in the particular direction that the tube has set up. So if the tube has the up arrow and you jump up, you will be able to go up it, but you can't then crouch down and go back down it. So I guess like in some ways they just act as warp pipe gates and means of traverse that don't involve platforming. But I'm also just not sure how necessary they were. They could have probably have just made these pipes exclusive to like removing backtracking, and then for the remainder of the level just had made it platforming obstacles. Anybody have anything to add about these tubes?
I think it might not be something that you feel in the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, but I think it at least provides some variety in like the level layouts. Like even with the slopes, like while they may feel like garbage to actually use, they at least make levels look more interesting. And I think that's sort of the same thing with the tubes, just being like changing the like changing where things are on a map, so that you're not always just going right or left. Like you can, it sort of like mixes and matches like your mind map of this game. I don't really know if I'm being entirely clear, but at least like aesthetically I feel better than just moving in the same direction the whole time.
I also feel like functionally they are. I mean, I know it's still just another way of removing backtracking, but even on a smaller scale, you'll run into a tube that you can't go through. You'll go through a large chunk of the level. Maybe you run into a tube you can't go through, and also a direction you want to go, or something you want to get, and somewhere else you want to go. You go through another large chunk of the level, or even a small part of the level, and you get what you need, and you're like, oh, now I got to get back there, but now there's the other end of that tube you couldn't get into, and you could ride it back to where you started. And this is something that I do know, like a lot of, like I know some like 3D platformers that do, like Ratchet and Clank used to always do things like that. So you'd go on your adventure, and it would kind of set up the way you're going to get back there, and then you get there, and you're like, oh, I can get right back to where I need to get, and I don't have to do that part all over again. And I feel like the tubes do that, and then they also like lead to some interesting, like, I won't say puzzles, but interesting ways to think about certain elements of the game. Like I remember there's one part where there's a bunch of tubes that will all let you go down but not back up. And it's all in a row, you're standing on them no matter what, and there's enemies on them, so you want to crouch. But now you have to think about, like, well, I can't crouch here because that'll put me back down at the bottom, and then I got to come back around and do it all again.
That's true.
And
yeah,
like,
I forgot.
There's
to
interesting
think about
mechanics, maybe not as many of them as they could have done, but I think it adds to the gameplay, both like to help you and then also to present challenge in some instances.
And not to contradict my previous self, I'm totally a fan of whenever these tubes remove backtracking. Obviously, I'm not saying they shouldn't exist at all. I just thought it was a weird decision to remove some platforming elements in favor of these tubes that just, push you from area to area.
I think a more succinct way for making the point that I was trying to make before is that it sort of, whether or not the actual gameplay changes as much, and sort of like the way that Joe was saying, it at least makes it feel like there's a bit more verticality, because having these tubes that you can go up can also like allow for the designers to like make you be able to fall more. So it just there's a lot more latitude with the way they can design these levels with that mechanic.
I like the tubes.
Tubes good.
There you go. That's really all you need to know. Tubes good.
I think they're cool.
Back of the box stuff right there.
Yeah, the tube should have, if anything, Hiru should have gotten on like a float or something, like a lazy river style float where he then goes into the tube. That would be the only thing missing from the tubes, in my opinion.
I think that at the start of the game there should be one tube that takes you through the whole game.
End of the game.
The whole game, you just ride the tube when you get to the end, and you kick the bad guy in the face on the way out.
Sounds like a Super Mario Maker level.
So forgive me if this isn't true, and that we've seen this before, but I think this might be one of the first games that I've seen that really embraced the idea of a like the sliding, like power sliding, like cool military guy sliding under things and attacking.
Yeah, I mean,
with
it beats
sliding.
Mega Man to the punch, and Mega Man is also a Capcom game, so it's pretty surprising that there was something in a Capcom game before Mega Man that has his signature slide, and you could do the sliding here for like as long as you want to in certain areas, right?
Pretty much.
So agreed. Kudos to that. Sean, I don't want to go too far though into the tricks and stuff, because we haven't really talked about Hiryu
really a
himself, Well, you know what I mean. You have to learn
Okay.
the slide. You don't start with it.
Okay.
Fair enough, right? I just want to talk about the character, not on like a personality level, but just we talked about the levels he lives in, but we haven't talked about how he controls, right? And he's got the sword, which is I think called the Cipher, and I'm not sure if it's like a sword with just like a normal sword, or if it has like some kind of special
It's like a
electricity
laser
around it
sword
or something like. Yeah, it's like a laser sword. All cool stuff. But he also he has that going for him. He's a member of the Strider Elite class, so he has like some skills of his own that enemies can't perform and stuff like that. But then he also has some interesting ranges of movement in terms of his jumping and his size and the scale of the levels themselves. I don't want to continue to be the guy who criticizes this game and then tells you guys how to or what you should react to. So if you don't mind, Joe, would you just tell us your thoughts on Hiryu?
So as far as his movement, he's got a couple of things that we chatted a little bit about this actually before the episode started, but there's a few things in this that me personally, I started out thinking, this is weird, it's hard to control, it doesn't work, and I'll never get the hang of it. And then ended up thinking, oh, this actually works decently well. So one being you can wall bounce, or wall bounce is the wrong term. I know that has different
wall jump
meaning in like triangle jump, yes. Triangle jump, which allows you to jump off of the wall onto another wall, kind of like parkour style. And that is very finicky to try and do. You have to like hit the A button the second time at like the exact moment that you're hitting the wall and changing directions on the D-pad. So it's not like a quick, like, I'll jump up there. And that was very annoying to me at first. Now, and the other one is the sliding. So you said, Mike, that sliding is not, you don't start with that? I don't remember getting that, but maybe I got it.
I thought
it's
I
the
started
first
with
thing.
it, yeah.
It's the first thing you get, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why
in the first level, it's like you're introduced to a point where you then have to, like, you're like, how do I get out of this? And then you gain the ability to slide through the little square hole that you have.
I see. Okay. Well, both of those things, the wall jumping, the sliding, they both feel they feel funky at first. I feel like, okay, like I really got to like sit here and think, and I got to hold down and then the direction I want to go in, and then the A button or B button, I can't remember, to slide, and I got to just rapidly be tapping the jump button as I'm perfectly changing directions on the wall. And that felt annoying. And my personal experience over like the movement in this game is throughout, I just slowly like got the hang of it, and it was never great, especially the wall jumping, but it was doable, and it was not anywhere near as bad as I originally thought when I started it. So I don't know if that explains everything that we want to talk about. I don't know if someone else wants to jump in and save me with the.
I thought that jumping in general was pretty. It didn't feel great. He takes a weird arc. There's a weird floatiness to the apex that it just doesn't feel like you have the same momentum. It feels very artificial. If you jump into a wall, you'll just sort of hang there for a second sometimes, and it's not there to give you a window of opportunity to jump off the wall. It's just you're interacting strangely with the level geometry. And there are a lot of times where you have to do that wall jump thing, and it is not easy. And I was basically I had to use the turbo to get it to work most of the time. And I know that if I played it enough, I would probably find the muscle memory to do it correctly. But I think it needed to have like a slightly larger window of opportunity to do that. I didn't have as much of an issue with sliding. It wasn't as hard to do, and it's not always necessary to do it. And I think like your movement speed has some really weird variations again with slopes, and I think slopes sort of play into how this character feels in general because there just are so many of them. So at least the attacks are like those feel tight. even though range feels a little short at times. But in all, I think that this character doesn't feel the greatest to control.
Yeah, and I really do think that comes down to the jump. And I don't even want to harp on the triangle jump, because that is something that you can kind of, if you could just get to the point where you learn the high jump. I mean, I know it's like level 5, so it takes a long time, but like if you can just make it through 1 or 2, like, you know, you're not triangle jumping for an infinite amount, right? It's not like you have to constantly be bouncing off the walls. It's just like you get to these points where you're like, I can't really progress any further because my jump doesn't reach these next things, and then you find out about the triangle jump, and you just basically have to bounce off one wall, and it gives you enough height to then get to the next one. It's not like you have to bounce. So it's not preventing progress or anything. I really feel like they shouldn't have even done it, though, if we're being honest, because it's not tight enough. It's not as consistent enough, even, you know, because it's not something where there's wiggle room on when you perform the next jump action, because it requires such precision. It can be one of those things that just stalls up gameplay, similar to backtracking, where, you know, you're doing it 8 or 9 times before you successfully land it, and then once you successfully do it, it's like, cool, I don't have to worry about that for a little bit anymore. But just the fact that you even have to worry about it is a little annoying. It's not an enemy, it's you. You should be able to do these things. The game is not a particularly challenging platforming game, but that's besides the point. The actual jump problem I have, and I don't know if this is just limited to my copy or whatever. I didn't see anything really talking about this too much online. The jump has a weird thing where it, like, holds you in place sometimes.
That's what I was talking about, with, like, getting stuck on level geometry with the...
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only person who experienced this, because I feel like that is the stuff that actually bothered me, and I think that has to do with, you know, the way they were designing these levels, and maybe the reason why they had so many slopes and stuff like that is just like, it's almost like you hit your head on an invisible block in Super Mario Brothers, you know, where like you're jumping and then you just aren't. Like you're either frozen in place or you just go right back down. You don't make a full jump. I was fine with the speed of the character, the attacks of the character, even all the tricks you learn are good things that give you that eventual range, right? Like your initial weapon is kind of like the shortest stick you have, right? But like it still works. And then every trick just makes it more powerful than the cipher that you were given. But the way that the character jumps, which again, because this has platforming elements and requires some triangle jumping early on, it doesn't leave a pleasant experience in my mind with how the actual character is compared to the level designs, which I actually thought the level designs were fair if the character behaved more like a Ryu from Ninja Gaiden or a Mega Man, another Capcom game. You know, it's not impossible for them to pull this off. It just feels like they made him a little trickier for no particular reason. And I'm sure, you know, Joe, you'll have some reasons to defend this, but I just feel like that overall these things only hold back the speed of progress and the overall gameplay. I never felt like it was the enemies holding me back. I felt like it was myself.
You're on to me. I do and I don't have a defense. I agree with the jumping. For me, it felt maybe not quite as much what you're describing, but for me, it felt like a lot of times when I would jump, the best way I can describe it is that the gravity was really low for the first part of my jump, and then somewhere in the middle of my jump, the gravity got turned up really high and yanks me back down. Like it felt like my jump was being interrupted, or like just the physics didn't look right to the way it should be, and that would confuse me at first. My defense is that just simply that I didn't think it was bad enough to really hinder my experience. Like I got used to that pretty quick, and like similar to what you said about the wall jumping, like it's never like that needed. Like obviously this is a platforming game, but it never feels like you need like super precise platforming. It seems more just like I got to decide which platform to jump to. And there were times where it would feel like, oh, I can't make it up high enough to this. But those are the times where I felt like I used the downward slopes to give me momentum. So yeah, there were definitely instances, even without like a slope present, where I felt like, why can't I get up here? Forget it. I'm just going to use my jump power up. But for me, there were few enough and far enough between that it didn't stand out to me as a major flaw.
It felt pretty. I definitely felt it more than that. Like it affected my enjoyment enough for me to say like this is part of why I didn't have fun at this point. But I can also understand that like you got used to it, and that's totally valid.
Yeah, I just think the things that got me the most, I think, that took me out of it were sometimes you jump and it's fine, and sometimes you come right back down, which I don't think
when you're jumping near a wall. Yeah,
and that, I don't know, that's especially annoying because you're trying to when you're trying to like triangle jump or wall jump or whatever you want to call it, it just messes you up even more than it normally would. So things like that made it extra janky, I thought.
Yeah, and to be clear, the good way to sum it up is that I got used to it. But I admit that me getting used to it still does not make it good game design. It just means I got used to the bad part, the bad element of it.
Right. You learn how to be that character.
Right.
Yeah, well, I totally understand that. I mean, that's with any game too. Is like, you think about modern game design, and Joe, we always have to reference Kingdom Hearts whenever we can. But like when you play as Sora, right? Like you find the exploits to like the thing that works best for your kind of system, and you play those to your advantage. Like it's not necessarily the way the game intended you to be Sora, but like that's how you play the character. It's the same thing here, right? Like the jump isn't perfect, but if you can figure it out and work around it, right? Then like that's how you play the game,
Right.
All right, so Sean, let's move into your section. You wanted to talk about the tricks. You were already talking about.
It wasn't
sliding,
a trick.
Which I know it's not a trick.
I was talking about the character movement, Mike.
Okay, well, I will tell you right now that the slide-in is definitely something that you acquire. I can say that with fact. So I am just confused on what a trick is versus anything else in this game, because the boots aren't tricks, but you still acquire them. So the tricks is just limited to something that is a different thing on the menu that expels energy, right? It requires energy for you to use the tricks, whereas the slide-in and the boots do not require energy to be used, probably for the best. I would hate to find out I don't have enough energy to slide. Sliding is, in some scenarios, less effort than walking, right? That's why baseball players slide into home plate. It's less effort. That's a joke. Anyway,
otherwise they would walk.
The tricks here are the power-ups for a new term on power-ups, right? Why call them power-ups when you can call them tricks? I like that.
I don't. I think it sounds silly. Like we're playing like Tony Hawk or something.
Okay, but he's not a superhuman, right? He's just a member of Strider. So these are just
if you read the manual, Mike,
learned.
a member of Strider that is C grade. We're not even talking A+, like hear you. Apparently a C grade Strider. Hold on. A C grade Strider has the fighting capability of a team of Navy SEALs. It says this in the manual. So he's a super A, and he can like conjure fire and has a laser sword. I'd say he's superhuman.
Okay, what level of soldier was Cloud?
Okay, well, here's the thing. This is a different world.
Right. So soldiers and Strider, who would win in a fight? Let us know on Twitter. Who would win in a fight?
Well, I mean, Cloud can summon Bahamut Zero, so Cloud.
Yeah, but you know how it works in like
slopes?
those death battle YouTube videos. Like they would take that summon away from him or something.
Yeah,
like they'd find they would remove all that stuff.
Anyway, your question about power up tricks.
Yes.
I didn't use them. Like I used jump when I needed to, like to make it a super jump for a short amount of time, and I used medical to heal when I needed to. But I didn't use anything else. I thought that they were useless otherwise.
Interesting. I largely in most of the levels didn't use them either, but I definitely found times where I was like fighting one of those like mini bosses that sort of stops you, and a lot of those times I found that it was easier to use either fire or spark I think was the one, and then there was another one, ground, that you got later that was very helpful if I just didn't feel like dealing with something, or I didn't want to hurt my remaining health that I used. But yeah, other than that, it was mostly using the cipher. But I did find some uses for most of the tricks.
For the tricks themselves, like, if you just want to go through the list, a lot of them are attack based. There's the fire, the spark, there's a ground one that I don't remember using, but it says causes flying to crash to the ground. I don't even know what that is. That
there are flying enemies. I imagine that makes them...
causes flying enemies. Got it.
Yeah.
This whole translation thing, wild. Anyway, some of them are attack based, but it's not that I didn't find them useful. It's that the overall enemies of this game are not particularly difficult. Some take more hits, but they don't necessarily require any like precision movements or like things that make them like more challenging. I reserved my energy when possible to use something like Spark against boss fights, which is, or even mini boss fights, just moments where it was like, cool, I've got like 10 or 15 energy, 3 sparks will probably take this guy out, so why not just use them there? And I appreciated that. We haven't really seen games where your power-ups matter in like a meaningful way, where it's like, hey, you could do like 3 of this attack and it'll or for most part 1 of this attack and it will outright kill these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, I don't know. I just didn't see them as because I could play the game without it at all, and it didn't really feel like it was helping me all that much, because all the enemies are pretty easy, and even the mini bosses are pretty easy to, like, because they have a very basic rhythm. Like, it takes more time to go into the menu, have the menu render on the screen, select what you want to select, and then go back to the game and use it. I would just prefer to just hit them enough times. I don't know. I felt like it was a pretty lazily implemented power-up system, where I don't agree that it felt like it mattered.
Okay, that's a good point, because the tricks, if we're comparing them, and I'm not saying we all are, I'm just saying I made the Metroid reference earlier. So if you're comparing them to games like that, right, where like now they're supposed to change how you see the world, right, and stuff like that, they don't really do that.
No, they don't.
They just make fighting a little easier, or they make traversal a little easier. That warp one finally makes it, I mean, granted, it's 30 energy points, but like it makes it so this way you can just warp.
That should be your
to
favorite
exit
one.
the level. Yeah, be my favorite one. There you go. These things are just, it's weird, right? I don't want to like say they're cheats or anything, but they kind of diminish the gameplay a little bit, because it's already pretty easy to fight these enemies with the sword. So they just make them easier to beat the enemies. And then the other ones, like the jump, just make it this way you don't have to use the triangle jump. You can just use your high jump. And the medical one just makes it this way. Like, I mean, like, pills are given out pretty frequently. Yeah. So you don't like have to manage your health too much, but hey, if you're like not expending your energy and you're about to come up to a bigger fight, or you're worried about your health, like, okay, time to use the medical one to restore 50 hit points, or eventually later on 100 hit points. Like, that's why I kind of like liken them to cheats, because in some ways they're too powerful.
They are too powerful when you're talking about regular enemies. But I think that the solve for that is for a large part of the game. Let's say you have 50 energy, and to do one thing it costs 5. Are you really just gonna use this thing 10 times just to kill 10 enemies? Or, like you said, like, are you going to save it for when it's going to matter? Like, yeah, you can kill 10 enemies with it. You could also kill those 10 enemies almost just as easily with your cipher. But at least for me, I know that like the enemies, like, it just comes down to your play style. But for me, the bosses, they did help me. So I was like, yeah, I have no reason to use these in the battle, but it's nice to have them for the boss battle. And it felt like at least it wasn't like, oh yeah, it costs 1 energy to do one of these, so I can use 100 of these right now. Like, and then it's like, yeah, I can just go through the whole level using it. But I do have to think about that. Like, okay, I get 50 energy. I want to at least use 30 to heal, and then I'm gonna have 20 left. So I'm really only gonna have 4 shots with this. So like, I gotta think about like how I want to use them. So like, that's where I thought their value came in.
Well, the worst thing they could do is just be like, no, you never gain any power-ups, right? Like, that would be strange. So I'm not sure what I'm advocating for or against here. I just, overall, they didn't seem to matter that much to me. So like, yeah, they're here, and they're useful in certain scenarios, not all scenarios. The energy bar is just something that I didn't really pay too much attention to, and, who knows? I didn't beat this game, so maybe, like, in the later levels, energy is something you're constantly managing, and you have to hope that you get some pills to restore it, and you have to hope that you, don't have to rely on medical to heal yourself, because you really need the ground power up to take down these flying enemies. Like, I think those are things that could happen.
The way I would describe this is the combat in this game needed a bit more depth to justify the kind of power-ups that are like that are given to you. Another example is at one point your Cypher gains the ability to shoot a projectile, but once again, most of the enemies are pretty easy, so like it would be cool to use it if it didn't take 5 seconds to power up, but because it is so easy to kill a lot of these guys, like, why would I wait 5 seconds to kill it with a projectile from my Cypher? It just seems like there really isn't much balance thought about. Like, the game needs to be harder, and some of the things need to be tweaked for a lot of this to really work, in my opinion.
Yeah, and my defense a second ago was really just a way of saying, like, this is the part of it that works, but I completely agree that it could, it should be that, these power-ups really make you view the levels differently and change, make you feel more powerful, make you feel like like you have a new ability throughout the whole game, like, not just to save them. So, like, yeah, I agree with that.
Might be the first game I can think of in recent memory that, like, exploring it is harder than fighting the enemies inside of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The biggest thing that we haven't talked about yet, we've talked about the presentation of the game and the levels and backtracking and just the world that you live in, but we didn't talk about the story that Strider is telling. And, I feel like it's telling a pretty interesting story with a really bad translation, if that makes sense. But the overall story, I was invested in, I mean, it's got that dystopian future thing. It's got that whole, like, backstabbing, who do you believe, secret organization has another secret organization. It had a lot of twists and turns to it, and you're revealed this information only through either the manual or through the floppy disks that you analyze. So, the story is limited, but it's engaging enough that even though I didn't beat the game, I was curious enough to, like, read through the rest of the plot. Even just the idea of the Strider's organization, right? These, like, high-tech ninja operatives, and that, the vice director is telling you to kill another Strider because he's been captured. Like, that's a convincing, like, start of the game that's, like, exciting enough that's not, like, super generic, right? It's not the world is under attack, you're the only one who can save us. It's, hey, your friend has been kidnapped, so kill him.
Yeah, and I think, like, didn't this also sort of have a manga associated with it that was sort of developed at the same time?
You're thinking of Mongolia, which is where he lives.
Oh, yes. I think it's Kazakhstan.
No, doesn't he live in Mongolia?
You're close. Maybe.
He, like, retired.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He retired to Mongolia,
and then
Magnolia. When they tried to get him back in the game, and he was hesitant, they told him that they would kill random Mongolians until he decided to join. I think that's in the manual.
I don't remember the killing random Mongolians, but I'm going to believe you because I think that a lot of the story is like this isn't as incomplete as like maybe Rambo or what's the word, the episode 13, Golgo 13, where it seems like it's skipping over a lot. I think this is a bit more cohesive or coherent, but it does have a lot of plot. You're right, and it does sort of take you from plot point to plot point, but that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know why we care about Kane. Like, yes, he's your friend. This is sort of like a criticism of a more recent game, I think, where like it would have the opportunity to explain why all these things matter. But I do appreciate that it's there. So yeah, it's definitely in top tier NES stories, which is a pretty low bar, but
it's no Scoon.
It's there. It's no Scoon, true.
No Scoon, no Ninja Gaiden either, though, right? Like there's no it's not presentationally well done. It's just a cool story that keeps you kind of like in the moment to moment gameplay, like a reason to push forward and go back to the worlds or go to the next place. Like they give you the explanation for what's happening story wise rather than just, I got this new stuff, so I got to go check it out. You know, Metroid kind of had that problem, right? Like all the storytelling is just told through the boss fights, I guess.
I mean, I kind of liked the cutscenes, like the beginning cutscene, and there are a couple more like spread out. So I wouldn't say that presentationally it's bad, but it's just it does not have enough time to tell much of a story.
Yeah, I'd say that like every element of the story that they're trying to tell is interesting, but really, really simply done. And like I think it's that simplicity that maybe makes it feel like a little, in some ways, a little underwhelming. Like I want more from this story, but I do think that what's there versus it not being there makes so much difference in like how much style this game has. Like that's what it adds for me is like Mike was saying, is like I love that you're like, oh, you're this like mercenary organization that's like dispatched out of a satellite to different countries or something. Like I'm interested in that. I wish there could be more story on this NES game, but like, you know, it's definitely like the outline of a really good story. So like it both leaves me excited and also disappointed that like I couldn't get more, but yeah, it's like the simplest version of everything they try to do.
It reminds me a little bit of like the story in Contra, how it's like, oh, it's like bad guys but also aliens, you know, and
aliens,
yeah.
And you kind of like experience the story through boss fights and stuff, but also just kind of through the environment a little bit, just in a way. Not like super reminiscent of it, but
no, I think you're right. And the discs that you get are sort of just that, like the most basic flavor text you can get to at least give you a bit more context.
Yeah. And I did find in the manual, it's right in the middle of it. Matic ordered Hiryu to destroy his friend Kane and threatened to start slaughtering the Mongolians if Hiryu refused.
Oh, so he didn't actually do it, but he threatened.
No, he threatened to. Yeah.
He would have done it. Make no mistake. Matic is ruthless.
He's a real asshole.
Speaking of Metroid, you know, because this is a whole thing with like, there's these
I feel like
enemies.
Mike's the only one talking about Metroid right now.
Yeah. I feel like,
I know, the one guy who didn't put it on the Essential Games list.
You know, the mind control weapon in this game is codenamed Zane, and then the final boss of this game is Mother Zane, and that's not really too far off from Mother Brain.
It's the other end of the alphabet.
But you've got to appreciate the epilogue of the game too, where I don't know if they were going for like, you know, it's not shocking or anything, but it is like a different kind of game where, you know, he quits. He's like, I'm done with Strider. I'm done with the world. Like, he throws his sword and he's just like, I'm I'm not fighting anymore. And I thought that was like, a different take for a video game character, right? They could have easily have just been like, he will return in Hero 2 or, Strider 2.
Yeah, that is the most committed to saying there's not going to be a sequel.
Yeah.
Unless there is.
Also, no, there is. Don't worry. We'll get to sequels and spinoffs. Passwords, though, have the best presentational value. I don't know if you guys tried this out at all.
I did.
But, each time that you put in a password, wherever you left off, the game ends with a brief description of what's happened so far.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Right, exactly. It's like I'm a fan of that. The fact that they thought of all the different types of passwords and scenarios you might wind up into, and then telling the story based on that. That's crazy.
They even name it, like the next episode. Like it has a name.
Yeah, it reminds me of Ninja Gaiden doing it with each act being its own thing, and then that was like the end of the episode, and then they'd set up the next episode.
Yeah, fun stuff.
I have a quick note here on the box art. It's the same guy who did the box art for Tenjin Tetris with all the Soviet Union stuff. So if you don't know what the box art for Strider looks, it's probably the art for the podcast episode at the moment. And the Soviet Union apparently has nothing to do with the game, obviously, but like at the time it was close to the collapse or whatever, and this is just like the visual inspiration for what is known as the Enterprise with the mind control weapon Zane and all that. I just thought if anything, like the takeaway for me was just that like the guy from Tenjin Tetris has a thing for like Soviet Union iconography. But other than that, also just weird to see any kind of Soviet Union references in a game that takes place in a dystopian future where they don't exist. On the sequels and spin-offs, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, the arcade game was developed at the same time, but it is a completely different game. The arcade version was a level-to-level based game where you just had to get to the end of the level and then move forward. In the arcade game, it's like it's a different story.
It's very impressive looking.
Yeah, very impressive looking too, and a lot more reliant on the combat, whereas in this game was more about exploring the worlds and all that. Just a big difference. But Strider 2, Roman numeral 2, was a European-developed sequel to Strider without Capcom, without Nintendo systems. So it was just like a different team being like, we want to make a sequel to Strider. And they did. And they also kind of made Strider 2 twice. So there's like Strider Roman numeral 2 for computers, and then there's another version for Genesis. And apparently that Genesis version is very well regarded. But that's not the only instance of Strider 2. So forget that they made Strider Roman numeral 2 twice. They also made Strider 2 in
like Strider as well?
Yeah, Strider 2. Number 2 instead of Roman numeral 2. This one is made by Capcom in 1999. It came out for the arcade and for the PlayStation, and it is set 2,000 years after Strider. So what I would imagine is 4,048. And I don't know why they had to go so far ahead. Like the dystopian future of 2048 already looked pretty futuristic, but it's the same villain. And again, it's a clone of the main character. So why even bother? Like, just make it the same character or whatever. I guess they really wanted to commit.
No, this is not plausible unless it's 2,000 years into the future.
Yeah. Right, and because we all know that he quit being a member of Strider at the end of Strider 1, so there's no way he would ever return to work. That's just unfathomable.
Not in 1,000 years, he said.
Yeah.
Then you have Strider, no numbers whatsoever, in 2014, which is a reboot of this NES game, but for the PS3 360 generation. It
Oh,
is
wow.
2.5D, so it's not like a 3D action adventure exploration Ninja Gaiden-esque game. Ninja Gaiden being the Xbox games. It's not like that at all. It's basically like this version of Strider with a little more story fleshed out and a little more gameplay, and obviously a lot longer.
Are there as many slopes?
There are
just
slopes
slope.
in
It's
the
just
game.
slope.
I can confirm that. I can't
That's
confirm
good.
the number of slopes, but I was excited to see them there. Of course, you know, in 2014, they had figured out slopes a little better. Super Mario World had really fleshed out the idea of what slopes could do in terms of platformers. And that's really it for Strider. There is an unofficial sequel to Strider known as Osman, which was a 1996 arcade
Osman?
game. Osman, O-S-M-A-N, not Assman.
Okay.
And it's only an unofficial sequel in the sense that it is all of the guys who worked on Strider for the NES, or maybe for the arcade, actually. Don't quote me on that. But they left Capcom. They're no longer working for there. So they're like, hey, what if we made a game that was like Strider? Doesn't take any of the plot elements, obviously, but just is in that same vein. And they made Osman. So people itching for more Strider can always check that out. Of course, he's also in every Marvel vs. Capcom game. He's in a ton of fighting games, for that matter. So that's probably where people know him more than this obscure NES game, right? Is like they probably know him as the guy who has the he's got like a bandana over his face, like a way a cowboy wears it, and he's got a large sword. That's probably how people know him in the Marvel vs. Capcom games rather than Strider. But he's also in the Japanese-only tactical role-playing game Namco X Capcom instead of, Marvel or anybody else, which is a damn shame that we don't have this game, right? Like, it's not a fighting game. It's Japanese-only. It requires so much knowledge of Japanese language, and yet we'll never know how the Namco and Capcom characters got involved together because it was never ported to English.
Huh.
Did you expect that much from the sequels and spinoffs?
I
don't think so.
I did not. I also don't remember Strider from. I mean, I guess I didn't play too much Marvel vs. Capcom, but I'm looking at screenshots now and it's not ringing any bells. So I guess that's just one of my blind spots.
See, I feel like I recognized Strider, so I was waiting for this sequels and spin-offs to see like where else. But none of those things would I really have recognized them from. I must have just, must just be in the zeitgeist, and I saw it somewhere.
But so that bandana thing that I was describing over his mouth is part of his cape, I imagine, from the pictures I'm looking at. But that's just not in this version. So I feel like they just don't like this NES version, even though they put a lot of effort into it and developed it like it's a completely original game alongside the arcade game. But I feel like they just said okay, this is what it is and it sold okay, but we care more about the arcade version than the NES version, and we're never going to speak of the NES version again.
Well, the arcade version was what made it famous, right? That's what everyone remembers. That's the one that's
yeah, I think so.
praised.
And the Sega Genesis version of it specifically is the version that is considered one of those reference points of wow, an arcade game that was ported to a console and actually plays like how I remember the arcade game. Other than I know some people do that with Street Fighter 2 as well, but still the arcades had a leg up on those things. But that's pretty cool to hear that, and granted the Sega Genesis is a 16-bit console as opposed to the 8 bits of the NES. But nevertheless, if you want to check out Strider, the arcade version, you don't need to find it at the arcades. You can just find a copy on Sega Genesis and call it a day. We're going to call it a day, but not so quickly. We have one big thing to do. We've done it 199 times, and we're going to do it for the 200th right now. It's a little thing we're building called the Essential Games List. Joe, you first.
All right. Well, it's no secret that I really liked this game. I've been pretty high on it. It gave me the same type of feeling that I had when we played. Of course, now I'm forgetting the name. When we played, drum roll. Give me a second. I know what game I'm talking about. I was just thinking about it. We mentioned it, Rygar. When we played Rygar, and I loved Rygar. And the reason it gives me that feeling is A, because it's like this bite-sized experience, but also it's an adventure. It feels like the progress and the adventure of it feel really good. And I like the game design. I like what they tried to do with the motion. Yes, they fell short sometimes. But I think like even the story that's incorporated in it makes me want to like get in and complete it. It makes me feel like a reason to do that. And I also think that yes, it's a little bit of an easy game, I think, compared to most of these NES games, but it's still an NES game. It's still, it's still going to give you a little bit of challenge. I think it's the perfect like bite size. Like, hey, I'm going to play this in a couple of sit downs and like and beat this game. And I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. I just had a lot of fun with this game, and I'm going to give it an essential vote.
That is one essential vote. Because Sam is here,
Hey.
It does need 3 votes. Usually it just needs 2. Sam,
Hey.
You are next.
I enjoyed this game as well. I thought that it has a lot that's going, a lot going well for it. I like how you have to revisit places, and I like the story. I like how each level is like kind of a maze, but not like you get crazy lost in it, kind of a maze. But for me, the controls and the just like how easy enemies come down, and like how easily you can defeat enemies, and the jankiness of the controls prevent it from like really being that like essential experience. I think it's a really good game, but I wouldn't say it's essential.
All right. Strider cannot suffer one more no. Sean, it's up to you.
And if not me, then you. But so Strider, love the presentation. Gone over it a billion times now. I love the home base. I appreciate the skeleton of the story that we got. It's a very good looking game. All of the levels feel unique, and no screen really looks exactly the same. There's some cool power stuff that you can do. Combat is okay, but the way that this character controls is really it's what it all comes down to. I think if this felt a bit smoother and there was just a bit more to the combat, along with like making battles harder, or not battles, but making fighting harder, but making moving easier, I think that this would be an essential game. But it doesn't, so it's not. I'm removing it from contention with a non-essential vote.
And I'll just add to that, this won't be a game that I'll be going back to. I think I criticized it enough throughout the episode. It has a lot of like bright spots, but again, we're all talking about the same reasons for why it won't be on here. I won't look for another reason to bring Metroid up, but if that one isn't getting a vote from me on the essential games list, certainly this one isn't. In some ways, you could view Strider as a Metroidvania, a different take on it for sure. It's not exactly following that formula, but it's doing whatever a Metroidvania is supposed to do. It's almost doing it in a very roundabout way where like you can explain it, but it takes a really long time to understand it, and it's not quite working as well as it should, and the overall like gameplay moment to moment isn't as fun as it could be. So why would that kind of game go on my list? And that's the kind of question I'm asking every week. Why would this game go on my list? So yes, Strider's not making it, but Joe, we appreciate your essential vote. We appreciate everybody who has the courage to say yes, but we also appreciate those who say no.
It's a good balance. Yes and no, good balance.
There can only be yes and no. We don't allow
Yeah,
maybe.
there's no in-betweens.
We're not done yet, though, with the big celebration of the 200th episode. I believe that Joe has prepared a little special trivia that we are hoping everybody can play along in. It requires 200 episodes worth of knowledge, but we're sure most of you are in on this ride. Joe, do you want to explain this little trivia game you've set up for us here?
Yeah, so I got a little game for us to play. We're gonna do some trivia to celebrate the 200th episode. We're gonna look back and do some trivia mostly on who said it and what episode was it said in. So I think that some of these, yes, of the four of us.
Okay.
So I think some of these things might be easy based on the context. Some of them might be, I don't know, we'll see. Some of them might be kind of tough. I also have a couple of bonus questions at the end, but I was trying to think on how we should do it, and my first thought was have each of you privately message me your answers so you don't hear each other's answers, and I can tally it up that way. But I think it'd be more interesting to hear you guys work together, to hear you guys discuss and converse. So instead, I think that you guys are all on a team, and out of a possible 30 points, I want to see how many points you can get. And to give you something to work against, I contacted friend of the show, Mark Pasqualato, who I've generally worked with a lot on Duck Hunt and anytime I needed a Zapper game and a lot of other games that require two players. He's always been down to help. He listens a lot, so he's not heard every episode. So you guys have definitely an advantage. But he's heard a lot of episodes, and he was able to take this quiz. And I'll tell you that out of 30 points, he got 12 right.
Wow.
Wow. I'll say that, I know that he is behind on the podcast. I know that he needs, I think, quite a bit of a handicap, especially because he's not on the podcast and he hasn't heard all the episodes. So I think I'm going to require that you guys beat him by 5 in order to win.
So we need to get 17.
So you need 17 out of 30.
I hope we
points.
get 1.
I hope so too.
I don't know if I will.
Now,
I've got like wet brain and all that fun stuff. So
I've weighted the questions, the answers a little differently, so I'll tell you the point value of each answer as I do it. But to jump right into it, question number 1. Somebody said, "It's a real love letter to ducks." For 1 point, what episode was that set on?
A love letter to ducks. It's got to be a Zapper game.
I feel this has to be a trick question because
no, it's not Duck Hunt.
It's not Duck Hunt.
Be.
Okay.
That's the one with the grenades.
Oh. You can still shoot ducks? I don't know. I feel like I need a hint. I don't know.
No,
love letter to ducks. Hold
was
on.
it Operation Wolf? What was the
Operation Wolf is a game. You know what? That is a good call. It's either Operation Wolf or Freedom Force in my mind. Because again, both of them are Zapper.
I'm gonna
games.
go with Operation Wolf on this. I don't know who said it.
I'm feeling Freedom Force though. I don't know. A love letter to ducks isn't like so recent, and Operation Wolf is a lot more recent than Freedom Force was.
I agree. I think I'd say Freedom Force.
Okay.
I hate that I hate that Sean said that he has wet brain and then he's going to wind up being right, it's going to be like, and then we're going to have to trust him for the rest of the trivia. But yeah, I think we're going to say Freedom Force.
Okay. Well, I wanted the first question, to be a simple one. So I think you guys might have overthought it a little bit. The answer is Duck Hunt.
Okay. Who said it?
Well, now that's for 1 more point. Who said it?
Well, that was Joe.
Okay. No.
Well, no, I mean, say it, but I want to talk about it, but I think that, Joe is the one.
I don't feel like it was Joe. I feel like it was Sam.
It sounds like something I would say, but I don't remember saying it.
I don't remember saying it either.
Love letter to,
but also Duck Hunt was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's not really Joe's humor. A love letter to ducks. Joe's not really that funny.
It's funny because of all the quotes that I've come here, I feel like mine are the least. I didn't find any good funny quotes for me. Next time I'll go find the funnier quotes.
Yeah.
Maybe it is Sam then in that case.
I'll say me. I was like, this sounds like something I would say.
Final answer?
Final answer.
So I did want this one to be a little trickier. I knew you would think it was me, but it is not me. However, if you remember, episode 4, Sam was not present on the Duck Hunt episode.
Oh my goodness.
The answer was Sean.
I said it was a love letter to ducks.
You said it was a love letter to ducks, and I thought that was really funny because I think you were responding to something I was saying, because I was very high on Duck Hunt.
Wow.
You could say Duck Hunt was the original Strider.
I would be curious
to
know, is that one of the ones Mark got right?
Mark got the game correct, but who said it wrong? He also said Sam. Oh, no, I think he said you, Mike.
Okay. I would never say a love letter to ducks, Mark. Let's be real.
Mark thought because I didn't specifically say love letter to ducks to him, it couldn't be me.
Got it. Okay, well, what's next? What do you got?
All right, question 2. Still, well, I'll tell you this. It's still about Duck Hunt, so no points available there. Who said, should I play Duck Hunt when I have access to Life is Strange?
I know
That
this
sounds
one.
like
But
Mike.
I'm gonna let
That's
you.
gotta,
Yeah.
that's gotta be me.
That's
gotta
definitely
be
Mike.
Strange.
Final answer?
Yes.
Yes, it is Mike.
I actually, that is one of the only lines I remember from that show.
I thought that was also very funny. Okay, number 3. You're getting dangerously close to a DDR. By dangerously, I don't mean negatively. It's the rare positive form of dangerous.
Who said
Whoa.
that, or what episode?
So let's start with what episode for 1 point.
Okay, well,
There were games that we called like rhythm games.
yes, yeah. I think that is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, the DDR thing. That's just my opinion.
That sounds
And he-
familiar.
You know, like, I feel like it's a trick to think, because, you know, we were in our own heads here. We were thinking that it was a different Zapper game than Duck Hunt. I feel like it wouldn't be one of the Power Pad games where we always talked about DDR. And that's why I'm thinking, similar to Sam's point about rhythm games, I was always calling Mike Tyson's Punch-Out a rhythm game.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
I
one I'm
agree with that
completely
logic.
stumped on right now, so I'm gonna go with you guys.
Okay, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
It was Dance Aerobics. Power Pad game. DDR, you know?
Damn it. We're so bad. We're in our own heads here.
Okay, and who said it for 1 point? You're getting
I don't think I
dangerously
was in
close
that
to a
one.
DDR. By dangerously, I don't mean negatively. It's the rare positive form of dangerous.
Well, Sean, it's either you or me.
That
I
sounds
don't-
like a Sean. I
I
wasn't there
don't
for this
know
one.
what the context of that is. Like a dangerous DDR.
I feel like it's me, but would he really pick 2 quotes that are me back to back? Maybe that's what he wants me to think. Yeah, I feel like that's a me thing.
That's
know?
a
Like,
you
we're
thing.
Yeah, okay, me.
It was me. I'm sorry, some of these, like, I feel like are just almost impossibly hard. So, yeah.
No, this is fine. It's funny, though, to think about how little we know our own show.
Okay, new game. I mean, you know, it's not Dance Aerobics again. If you say vroom loud enough, you might think you are racing.
Okay, maybe no, because you actually are racing an RC Pro-Am.
What about Rad Racer?
Yeah, Rad Racer I was thinking of.
And so this if I guess doesn't matter what you go first, but if you go if you guess the game first, that's worth 2 points because this is a toughie.
So
That makes me think it's not
framing
Red Racer.
itself as a racing game, or at least a car game. But it's
is
not.
it is it Skate or Die maybe?
Vroom?
Because there's like a race in it. No, I don't know.
No,
Probably not that one.
impossible. I need you guys
Maybe,
to,
like, I
to
don't know.
at least spark some life.
Spy Hunter?
Oh, Spy Hunter.
Yeah.
Now, I like that. I'll be fine saying that, knowing we're wrong. but
Yeah,
at
I
least
don't think
we
that's
gave
it, but
a
it sounds
college
like
effort.
it sounds like a good guess.
All right, Spy Hunter.
It's Cycross.
What the hell is
Ooh.
Psycho? Oh, that.
Oh,
okay,
come on,
yeah.
with the motorcycle.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
got it.
But who
Okay,
said it?
and
for
who
1
said
point?
it? That was a Sean thing. Sean said that.
Sean?
Yes.
Everyone?
Yeah.
Sure.
It was Mike.
What the heck? If I say vroom, I would never say vroom ever.
No, you
Vroom
say
is
it.
not in my vocabulary.
I just heard you say vroom before we started recording.
Vroom, vroom. No, I was saying zoom. I was doing the zoom, zoom, zoom.
Well, a lot of
Those
listeners
commercials.
comment on the sounds in the background, the New York sounds. That's usually just Mike under his breath going vroom.
Right. It's not actual cars outside.
Okay, number 5. And in this, there's a name of a character that I'm going to just refer to as he. I won't say the name because it'll give away the game.
Sure.
but I think he had a worm that went to the moon at some point, which is pretty cool that a worm did that.
Oh, this is in the this was the Sesame Street ones.
Oh, that's a good
Elmo's
one.
worm.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't recall.
I like that. Sesame Street. What was it? It was 1, 2, 3. Yeah,
Or was
Sesame
it
Street.
ABC?
No. You played ABC early. It was that we only played 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so
Sesame Street 1, 2, 3.
Yes, it was.
Oh, thank goodness.
And who said it for 1 point?
I think
this could
was
be
me,
anyone.
but
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
All right, let's say Sam.
Correct.
Hey!
Wow,
All right.
Sam. You know that's why you knew it though.
What, we
right
got
away,
3
too,
points
'cause
right
you
now?
know what you
You
say.
have 4
Yeah.
points right now.
It's like, who else has a worm on the moon? It's Elmo.
All right. 4 points. Next question. You want... So this is also, again, in reference to Sesame Street 1, 2, 3.
okay.
You want the child to hit that one little button? Those fingers aren't attached to anything yet.
That's got to be me.
That does
right?
sound like Mike.
I was fighting about the menu.
Yeah, Mike does get very confrontational.
You were defending the menu a little too much, if you want me to be honest.
Yeah, there was definitely a fight between both of you. I think both parties were involved.
Yes, me and you were fighting a lot in that episode. It was not a friendly day on Sesame Street.
I doubt it. Yeah, I just think that this is a hill that you would die on. So
Okay, so yeah, you want the child to hit those buttons. What was the exact quote?
You want the child to hit that one little button? Those fingers aren't even attached to anything yet.
Yeah, that's me.
That sounds like Mike.
It's Sean.
what?
Oh,
I tried to give you the hint that, like, by saying, like, oh, you definitely both were involved in this conversation.
You
But
did
the
do
thing
that,
is
yeah.
you are defending the menu. Because Mike is saying, like, well, they should really teach them to use the buttons properly rather than just hit any button to go up. And then you say,
I feel like
oh, you want them to pick
our
out
menu
that one
talk
little button.
wasn't really a hit, was it?
What's that?
I don't know.
All right. Number 8. Well, I'm sorry. That's actually the wrong number. Forget the numbers. Next question. I mostly watched the Kablooa saga, and then I watched a lot of the Garbanzo Chronicles. For 2 points, what game?
I have no idea.
that sounds like you made it up right now.
I don't think I was on whatever this one was.
It sounds like Joe. I'm gonna go with Joe.
The Kablooa saga, and then the... Oh, wait, no, you know what? I know what it's from. Do I have to say what game it's from?
Oh yeah, let's do that first.
Game for 2
That's
points, person for 1 point.
That's got to be that Dragon Ball game, right? What was that called? It was called...
Oh yes,
It wasn't called Dragon
something
Ball.
Dragon Power. Dragon Power.
Dragon Power, yes.
Yeah.
And that had, like, weird names and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Dragon Power.
It is Dragon Power.
Hell yeah.
Yes!
And who
Hell
said
yeah.
it? That's 2 points.
Who said it? That's, again, you know...
It's Joe.
I feel like it has to be Joe because you were the answer to the last one, and I feel like Joe just doesn't do that. He doesn't do repetitive things. Sounds like a you thing, but I'm going to say Joe as well. So, Joe, is it you?
It is me. Because I
Hooray.
had not watched any Dragon Ball, and you guys were talking about all the different sagas and chronicles you watch, so I just made a couple up to feel included.
I love it.
All right. Next question. You guys know that little plastic fishing game where you have a little fishing pole that has a magnet on it, and all the fish have little magnets in their mouths, and when you wind it up, they open their mouths? That game is so much better than this game.
I'm sure that was me because I know exactly what I picture that in my head.
All right, so let's go Sam for the 1 point.
Correct. And for
Okay.
2 points?
Now, Sam, oh boy.
But the thing is, like, I don't know if it was in reference to a fishing game or to
Yeah,
just like a bad game.
Were you on the Friday the 13th episode?
Yeah, but I don't think it was that one because that one at least
Okay.
had depth.
Do we think maybe it was spoken of in the context of a non-game, like
Oh, like a Rob game.
a Rob game? I don't know.
Not a Rob game, definitely not.
Okay.
Ooh, this is
I
tough.
think this is
yeah.
a little bit more recent, but not like super recent.
When was the last time you thought about that fishing game?
Probably when I said that.
Okay, yeah, no, I know. So when was that?
uh,
Like a year ago, 2 years ago?
I don't know. I feel like if I pulled up a list of episodes, I could maybe.
No,
But I'm not going to do that and cheat. I would say probably
What about
man.
Wheel of Fortune? Were you on the Wheel of Fortune episode?
I don't think so.
That was a bad game.
Yeah, but I don't think
this
it
was-
would draw that conclusion.
I think this was
got it.
after my first hiatus.
We
I don't know.
abstain.
All right. Sam, it's up to you to pick a game that you remember being on an episode for and just saying it,
don't
'cause
make
we
me do
won't
that.
we won't be upset with you. No, we won't be upset with you.
No,
You must do it though.
but it's like
Bomberman.
it's a bad game though.
Yeah, I know.
Amagon. I liked Amagon.
You weren't.
I liked
Oh,
Amagon,
okay.
so that was
Yeah, wait. What's that other game with the Russian guy?
Russian
The
attack.
Russian guy?
No. Shoot, it was like right after Best of 87 or Best of 88. I think it was right after Best of 87. It was Karnov.
Oh.
Were you on Karnov?
That was pretty early.
I don't know. I think so. No,
All right,
I don't know.
Let's do
Should I
Karnov.
say Karnov?
Let's just
Yeah,
do Karnov.
It's not. I don't,
Karnov, no. Sam, it was a Rob game. It was Stack
oh
Up.
no!
See?
I was sure it wasn't.
Wet brain. Got it right.
Wow.
And now I
Let
have the
Sean's wet brain
It's contagious.
get some. Yeah, he's got thunder.
It's contagious over internet.
All right, what
right.
do you got?
Next question. You guys have 8 points right now, just for the record, too.
Ooh,
All
okay.
right.
Next question. This one I think is a tough one, so don't be too hard on yourselves here. But I think Bob Saget and Zac Efron kind of look the same.
Oh man.
Okay, I've never had that thought before, so it can't be me.
I
that's
talk
like a
about
Mike
Bob Saget
thing.
pretty. Yeah, I
Yeah.
talk about him pretty often.
But I don't know what context you would have talked about Bob Saget. Was there an American Funniest Home Videos game? No.
That'd be a fun game.
Yeah, that's okay. So let's say it's me.
I'm saying it's you.
though. Yeah.
It's Sean.
What?
Wow, Sean, you can't even remember your own thoughts.
I don't
And,
think
all right,
I ever
let me
thought
give you
about... Oh, okay.
Let me think of the context a little bit more to maybe give you a little bit of a hint towards the game, because this one's like a little unfair because there's just like no context in it at all. I'm trying to remember exactly what brought this up. All right, you know what? I'll just give you a different hint. See, this game is not any like of the traditional game genres we usually play. It's trying to do something unique. I don't know if that's enough. of a
Lunar
hint.
Pool.
So maybe this is Wheel of Fortune?
So, like to give you the hint, like to say Lunar Pool, I would consider that like
Wait
some
a
sort of like
second.
sport
Okay.
game or something.
It's
so
the-
I would eliminate that.
Why aren't you listening to Joe's hints?
No. I hear it. I think it's the game. It's like a word that shouldn't be like suddenly. It's like a trivia game and also it's like a party game.
Oh, right. Then what was that part? Trivial Pursuit.
no,
right? Was that?
it's not Trivial Pursuit. It's.
No, I was gonna say.
I think the only reason I can tie this is because the cover of the game, whose name I can't think of, is just like a bunch of '90s people.
Oh, right, and I think I said one of them looks like Zac Efron, or Bob Saget, and then you said,
Okay, so
I think of
we
them as
have
similar-looking
reconstructed this
people.
conversation, but I still don't know the name of the game.
yeah, it's a trivia game. Well, that doesn't help.
It's like
Well, it was
serendipity.
recent though, right?
No, it wasn't that recent. I mean, I guess it was maybe a year ago.
Oh, so it's before it's 1988 then.
Maybe.
I'm on the edge of my seat right now. I gotta tell you guys that
Okay,
it's killing me.
It's not. It's like one word. Da-da-da-da-da. Or
Oh, wait, it's like a board game too, right? Remember we thought it was going to be a board game?
yeah, I don't know if it is a board game in real life.
No, it's not. No, there is a Taboo.
No, it's not
that's, No,
Taboo.
that's a different game. Never mind.
Oh god.
Different thought. Oh man. Rare made this game.
I'm so tempted to just.
Oh, wait a minute. Joe gave us a hint.
Okay.
Joe said he's on the edge of his seat.
Anticipation.
Yes,
It's anticipation. Yes, okay. I'm actually very impressed that you guys reconstructed that conversation. Like that was really good.
All right, that was a good one.
You guys
Okay.
have 10 points. You only need 2 more to tie Mark.
Okay.
Okay.
Next up, I played this game with the power pad. A lot of crazy things.
I'm gonna go Mike.
That's a me thing. Yeah, that's a me thing.
And it has to be a Power Pad game. And unless it's not.
Oh, wait. Yeah, would
Let me
that
read
be,
it again. I played this game with a Power Pad. A lot of crazy things. Things.
It's not a Power Pad game then. But I think I still said it.
Yeah,
No.
that does sound
No.
like a thing you would say.
No. No, he's in my head now. It's not me, and it's not a Power Pad game.
That narrows it down to 3 people and 180 games.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this like one of those inside joke things where, like, is this John Elway's quarterback or something? Like, like one of those things where, like, we had the Power Pad game that, remember we recorded an episode and then we recorded the other episode on the same day, but because of listeners, we didn't want, them to know. So we mentioned John Elway's quarterback, and you had that thing where you were like, about his,
okay.
like you thought he was the owner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes. All right. No, but
Was
it
it
was the
one
Denver
of those golf
Broncos.
games?
But you know what?
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, it's.
I'm going to say, like, well, let's start with the baseline as I said that for John Elway's quarterback club or whatever.
Okay, so you want to say you said that?
I want to say that maybe I said that as a cover because you made me feel bad. Unless you want to say you said it.
It's either you or Joe. I know I didn't say it now. So I feel like, do you find yourself repeating your sentences, or is that a Joe thing? Lots of crazy things. Like, I think I don't think you repeat yourself.
Okay.
So I'm going to say it's
He
Joe.
just repeated himself. Yes, that was-
Oh my goodness. So what is it? You say. You take a guess.
Are you going with Joe, or are you?
Let's go with
talking?
Joe
It's Joe.
All right.
right.
Very good.
for
Very
that
good.
game.
Huh?
No. I didn't say.
Oh.
I didn't say it was that game yet.
Okay.
The episode, yeah. So the game. Decide on that one.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Well, if it was around that time, that was we were doing. That was like John Elway's, and then we had the Tecmo Bowl.
Oh, wait a
right
minute.
After that,
It was
right?
Ultima. It was Ultima 3, wasn't it?
Okay.
Ultima 3 with the Power Pad? Because, wait, what's...
You seem
let me
pretty.
think.
You seem pretty confident.
Ultima 3 is... Okay, so, like, look, here's the problem. Ultima 3, John Elway's quarterback, and Dance Aerobics are all, like, the same time. So, I could see how... Like, you see how we're coming to this conclusion? But would Joe really go back and listen to the Ultima 3 episode? That was so long. That episode was like 2 hours.
Maybe he did. You don't know what Joe does in his, like...
Well, I hate the fact that it's either John Elway's quarterback or Ultima 3, and I can't figure it out. So, which one do you think it is?
Let's go Ultima 3. I'm going with your gut.
With that guess, you have officially pulled ahead of Mark.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
Good
Ultima
job,
Exodus.
Mike.
Thank you.
So you got 13 points. Now you're just playing to up your score. We're almost done here. But I do want to give the context to that. Yes, you're right, Mike. We said in the episode after, I think it was Dance Aerobics, we recorded first.
Dance Aerobics first because Ultima 3, we needed more time to play even more of the game.
Okay.
Right. So we recorded that first. And in that, you referenced something about, like, last week when we played Ultima Exodus, even though in real life, secretly, we hadn't played it yet. And then Sean said, like, well, what, did you play Ultima Exodus with the Power Pad? And I was like, yeah, I played it with the Power Pad. Or we were talking about how, like, yeah, I definitely said that in the last episode. I played it with the Power Pad. And then you were like, yeah, Mike was like, yeah, you said a lot of crazy things in that episode. So then I made a point to, in that episode, say, I played this with the Power Pad, a lot of crazy things.
Let's just say you had to be there.
Yeah. Long story. Okay, the last one of this format, then there's the 2 bonus ones.
Okay.
So this one's a little funky, but here it is. Somebody says, it's like a training center. To which Mike replies, that's a great point, Sean, about it being a training center. Who said the initial, it's like a training center that Mike replied to?
It must have been Joe, because I think there was a thing where you guys were introducing each other and you switched names or something like that, or you were referring to each other differently.
That's a classic substitute teacher prank.
Yeah. I would also think it could be Sam when he was doing his recording his episodes, and then we would just like insert them in. But
that doesn't make sense in that context.
I didn't do that much. That was only Zanuck, I think.
It was right. So I don't think it would be the Zanuck episode. So I'm gonna
also
say,
for the record, sorry, this is just for who said it. Not going to ask you the game on this one.
Okay,
right.
2 points.
So then I think Joe
also
said it.
Yeah.
Sticking with me.
Sticking with Joe.
Yes, I said it. There was no trickery of other names. Just Sean got the credit for it, but I said it. I immediately.
That's like a bone to
said,
pick, and that's
it's like a training center.
Wow,
Mike says,
that's
great
really,
point, Sean.
really
I never
petty.
noticed it until I re-listened to it right now. But I'm bitter about it. Okay, now the first bonus question, and I'm sorry, I actually have 3 bonus questions. I forgot. First bonus question: which one of these did Mike not say? 1. Unfortunately, that's the roll of the cards. 2. We've got this great tiger character, but what could we make to go with it? Maybe cereal? 3. The menu bothered me a little. It just said, which would you like? I don't think that's appropriate language. And 4.
Okay, so here's my
Wait,
thing.
one more.
I already know the answer.
Wait, I got one more. I got to say the last one. I was watching Fresh Prince on HBO Max, and I was like, this isn't Frog Fractions.
Okay, guys, I know the answer only because I say all those things regularly. So even though it is a Mikeism, I'm very confident that I didn't say roll of the cards.
Oh my god, that was the one I was like, oh, he had to have said that.
No, I know I said HBO Max with Fresh Prince and Frog Fractions. I know I said that. The other 2 just felt familiar to me. Roll of the cards is something that I would like. I probably have said,
It's like a
but
Zap Brannigan quote.
It would require somebody to like find it, like in an episode, like specifically. Which I'm not saying Joe didn't do, but it's more of like a mistake thing that I feel like would be like hard to catch.
Unless
than the other 3, which are like things that I feel like I've said.
All right, we'll go with the man himself.
So you're going with roll of the cards.
Roll of the cards.
You did say roll of the cards, actually.
Oh no! Oh my God.
And here's the thing: you said it and immediately realized and laughed and said, "Oh, roll of the cards!" Like you realized what you said. What you didn't say was, "We've got this great tiger character." But what can we make to go with it? Maybe cereal. I said that, but I did say it in response to a joke you made about Tony the Tiger, which came first, Tony the Tiger or Frosted Flakes. So a little, trying to make it a little tricky there for you.
Wait, real quick. Did we not do the game for the last question?
We did not.
We didn't have. Yeah, we didn't have to.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
we
that's
didn't have
not.
to.
That's okay.
Damn, I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay.
That's crazy.
Okay, next question. Which episode did we not mention Mousetrap and that we never actually play Mousetrap, we just build it? Of these 4 episodes, which one did we not mention that?
That is crazy.
And mind you, I just was randomly listening to random parts of episodes, and I caught this 3 times that we mentioned this. Not episodes that were anywhere near each other. Okay. Anticipation, Paperboy, Amagon, Othello.
I think that it was me who said that you always set it up and you don't play it. And I don't think I was on the Othello episode. So that's what I would guess.
But we've all said it, trust me.
Yeah.
It's my thought as well. So I'm actually thinking it's the Amagon episode.
Which one is Amagon again?
It's the one with the, like, you build a transformer, right?
No, Amagon's the one where you're running through the jungle, right?
Oh,
Your guy
right.
turns into
yeah.
the giant
I still don't know what game
Amagon.
it is.
Yeah, he's like a weak, scrawny little kid, but he has a gun, and then his power up makes him worse because he can only punch.
Wow, I really want that to be a back of the box of something. I have no idea.
Wow, I hate that it's probably not Amagon, but the other three all like have a reason to bring up Mousetrap.
Yeah, in a way.
You know, like
I think Othello
Paperboy
is
has
is a red herring. That's what
I know, but like I couldn't make a guess on the other three. Like they all have legitimate reasons for why we bring them up, except for Othello, I guess. Like I guess I could hear myself saying like Othello is more fun than or less fun than setting up Mousetrap and not playing it. I'm still gonna say Amagon, but feel free.
I think
I
it's
suck
Othello,
at this game.
but
Sean, you're the tiebreaker. Who do you believe more?
I guess I'll lean Amagon. Yeah, I'm gonna lean Amagon. I don't know at all.
All right, going with Amagon.
yeah.
Yep.
It was Paperboy.
Oh,
Damn.
Whoa.
All this really
I don't
says
really
is how
remember
much
why
like,
you brought it up in Amagon. Like Anticipation and Othello are board games, so like I get that, but like yeah, I don't remember the context. But you brought it up in Amagon, and I remember thinking, well, that's the third time I heard
Mousetrap just lives
in this, like,
rent free in our minds.
Yes,
but just the part where you play it, not the part where just the part where the trap goes off.
Yeah.
And setting it up. Not
and who
actually
knows how
playing
many
it.
other episodes that I didn't listen to this week you might have mentioned it in. All right. Final question. Which of these three games did we not mention Twister? Stack Up, Stadium Events, Dance Aerobics.
Well, Stack Up.
It's gotta be Stack Up.
I feel pretty confident about Stack Up.
Unless there's
Answer?
a fourth one. Yeah, okay.
No, you mentioned it in Stack Up. You did not mention it in Stadium Events.
Really? Oh.
Well, wow, this is crazy.
This is... But we just...
How are the listeners
say
doing?
things.
You guys should let us know on Twitter how you guys are doing.
I guess we
And,
don't really put a lot of thought into what we say.
Yeah, and also some of these were like very, very like obscure. But 15 out of 30. That's a good 50% with the curve. You've passed.
I don't know, the curve...
Okay.
I thought the curve was we had to hit 17.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the curve.
Yeah, who cares? Who cares?
You passed.
The point is we scored
You
15
beat
points,
Mark.
which is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Well, yeah. Thanks for bearing with me. That went on a little long, but that was fun.
Yeah, it's all great. I threw this all in the post show.
Good. Yeah, that was actually really fun to hear you guys work through it and like be gritting my teeth when you say it and then move past it or get close to it.
We should do this more often.
Yeah. I love the trivia, and we'll be sure to play more games. Hopefully, NES games, Nintendo games specifically, maybe in chronological order, maybe with a vote on whether they wind up on a thing called the Essential Games list. And if we do something like that, it will definitely post on wherever you listen to podcasts every Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I don't do time zone math, so do your own. But yeah, it always happens then. It's going to keep happening. This is only episode 200. We've got like 700 total, so we're going to keep banging them out. And hey, if you're one of those new people who's like, hey, I'm interested in another podcast from these guys, I'll listen to Nostalgia Bites, BYTE, but they are BITE sized episodes.
Hey.
You can do that on Patreon for $5 a month. Again, link in the show notes, link on our Twitter, and soon to be link on our newly found website, which is very exciting. Everybody can join us for episode 201 next Friday for Super Dodgeball. We'll see you then.